Hello everyone, my name is Tyler. I'm 18 and my girlfriend went to jail. But I decided to stay with her, against my parents' wishes. And it was a tough choice, because I would have lost everything in the process. But it turned out so much worse than I could ever have imagined. When I met Vanessa, I almost immediately knew that she was the one. I've never had so much fun or felt so comfortable with anyone. There was a problem though. My parents immediately didn't like her. To be honest, my family was quite well off, and Vanessa's family, well, they were very poor for her entire life. It didn't help that she only lived with her mother. To explain it simply, my parents always dreamed that I would find a well-educated girl with a bright future, and Vanessa wasn't that at all in their opinion. It was because they thought she looked and behaved rough. A lot of piercings, tattoos, and stuff like that. The first time she met my parents, they immediately jokingly started pressuring her into wearing dresses and asking about her tattoos. Vanessa was quite direct and didn't even try to hide her dislike of being attacked like that, and she was vocal about all of it. My parents were very taken aback by this, what they considered rudeness. I was a bit worried, but I would forget about that every time we went out, concerts, parties, or just long night walks. I couldn't even understand why she would hang out with someone like me. All this time, my parents were pressuring me into not dating her, but I tried to convince them that she was smart and interesting, and it wasn't her fault that she was born into a poor family. I couldn't really say anything the day she was sent to jail. I couldn't really understand what happened. She decided to steal some jewelry from a store to sell it later, but got caught and was sentenced to 4 months in jail. All of this sounded surreal. My own girlfriend was sent to jail. I would visit her as often as I could, trying to understand why she would do something like that. She wasn't really remorseful, because she was doing anything that she could to survive on her own. I tried to make sense of what happened, and there was some weird story about a guy named Matt, who was always coming up with insane schemes to make money, and stealing jewelry from a store was his latest idea. I couldn't understand what kind of relationship they had, and where Matt was at the moment. I was asking why she didn't ask me to help, and she said that she wasn't a gold digger and didn't need my money. I loved her with all my heart and couldn't just leave her. So I waited for her all those months, trying to hide the fact that she was in jail from my parents and friends. When she was finally out, I was super happy. I took her out to a restaurant and just spent a fortune to make her evening better. She felt a bit uncomfortable about all of this, but she was still happy to see me. Next time Vanessa came over to my parents' house, my mum said that she hadn't seen her in a long time, and Vanessa calmly answered, "Oh, I was in jail. Didn't Tyler mention it?" You should have seen my parents' faces at that moment. Or mine. Vanessa didn't even blink and was looking at my parents in a defiant way. Mum started shouting about how we couldn't have a criminal in our house, took Vanessa by the hand and started dragging her towards the door. Then I tried to block my mother and pull Vanessa away from her. And then even Dad joined in, pulling me off everyone. I didn't know if it looked more sad or stupid. But anyway, Vanessa didn't need to be dragged to the door. She just left right after. And I tried to run after her, but my parents stopped me. At this point, my parents gave me an ultimatum. Either I dump Vanessa, or I leave their house and don't get any support. It was a shock to me. My whole life, I was preparing for my future, to take over my father's business when I was ready. So I devoted all my time to studying and getting ready to take on the role. I didn't even think about what I wanted at the time, because everything was clear for me. I mean, dating Vanessa was the first thing in my life. I did because I wanted to, and it was not for my parents. Every other girl I ever met was interested in me because of my money, but not Vanessa. Even how we met was weird and special. I saw a frog in the park and was watching it, and then she suddenly appeared out of nowhere and asked if I knew how to differentiate between a male frog and a female one. Then she took the frog into her hands. It started shouting, and she said, if it screams, then it's a guy. She just made me feel like I was a happy kid and forgot about business and studying for a moment. I didn't care if she went to jail or not. So I told my parents that I was choosing Vanessa, went outside and ran after her. When Vanessa saw me, she could barely contain her tears, and she was usually very tough. I tried to take her by the hand and to explain that we should be together, but she just shook her head and said, "Please go home," and left. I didn't know what to do, so I kept standing there, watching her walk away. Then I went back home. My parents weren't happy about what I did, but they decided to give me a second chance. And I didn't want to take this second chance. I wanted to be with Vanessa. So over the next few days, I tried to contact her, but she wasn't online anywhere. I tried calling, but no answer. I was worried that she'd gotten into trouble again, so I asked her friends for her address, and they gave it to me. When I went there, I arrived at some weird trailer park. It was dirty and people were looking at me strangely. Vanessa was there, as well as her mother, who I'd never met before. She was surprised to see me. I never really expected that she lived in such a bad place. I always pictured something a bit better, like a small apartment, and it truly shocked me. I had a long talk with Vanessa. She didn't want to be a part of my life, because her life was a dead end. Before, she was stuck at a dead-end job, and now it was even harder to find something new after her jail time. I didn't care, and promised her that it would get better if we could just be together. So I informed my parents of my decision to really stay with Vanessa, and started packing my things, while my mother and my father were kind of giggling at me, sure that I would be back soon. I moved in with Vanessa and her mother, and started searching for a job. Of course, it wouldn't be something great, but I needed at least something to make ends meet. I wasn't going to college anymore, because my parents were paying for it. But at least Vanessa and I were happy together, the only person who had ever understood me. Both of us started working at the same store, and soon we were able to afford a very small apartment, which I leased myself, and it was a huge mistake. Everything was going great, and we loved each other. Of course, soon I started to wonder if that was how my life was going to be from now on. Just working in a store. Me and Vanessa were constantly tired and started fighting all the time. Especially because we were together, both at home and at work. There was no partying or anything romantic anymore, just work and home. And I was wondering if my parents were even waiting for me to come back. The situation got more complicated when I arrived late at work and saw Vanessa talking with a strange man at the store. He was older than us, and I quickly realized it was the mysterious Matt, the guy who had the jewelry plan. They both made it look like a normal clerk and customer conversation, and Matt quickly left. I tried to subtly nudge her into telling the truth, but it was clear that she was hiding something. Our relationship continued to deteriorate, and after a week, she confessed the whole truth. Matt was her ex, and they wanted to make as much money as possible and run away somewhere else to find a better life. Around that time, she met me, and I was someone completely different from Matt, but she never found the courage to officially break up with Matt. He disappeared after the whole jail situation, and now he was back, apologetic and claiming that they had found enough money for them to run away and be together like they always wanted. And Vanessa didn't want to keep living like we did, and she was basically leaving me. We had a huge fight because I gave up my future to be with her. All she could say was sorry, and then she left, and I was alone in the apartment. I was so angry at all of this that I went to the police and told them everything I knew, hoping they would catch Matt. It didn't work out, because getting search warrants wasn't as simple as I thought, but they did question him, and it was clear to everyone who tipped off the police. So one day, I returned from work to my apartment to find it completely trashed and everything broken. It was Matt's revenge, and I could only guess whether Vanessa had tried to stop him or was fully supporting him. I couldn't keep paying for the apartment. I couldn't pay for the damages either, so I was left with the only option, asking my parents for help. I returned to my parents and told them the whole story. They paid for everything, but not without scolding and making fun of me in the process. So, I lost my girlfriend, my parents' trust, and my chance for independence. Of course I wouldn't inherit my father's business anymore, because he deemed me unworthy of it. He'd already bonded with one of his younger co-workers and treated him as a son, and I was just a nuisance in the house. I'm not giving up though. Now I'm studying law independently, and will try to apply for college. This whole situation's made me interested in it. Maybe I might even be able to prove to my parents that I'm not the failure they think I am. Thank you for listening. I hope it'll help you to avoid making rash decisions in the future. Share this story so more people can hear about it. And if you liked it, please subscribe.